let's do a demo of the front end, the web app for Ripe Protocol. Let's first look at the deposits page. This is where you can put assets into the protocol to earn yield, or you can use these assets as collateral for a loan. Up top are the assets that I have already deposited. And then down below are other assets that are approved and supported by Ripe Protocol that I could deposit in the future. Our wedge into this market will be tokenized real-world assets. But we also support crypto-native assets. As you can see, we have yield-bearing USDC on Aave, staked ETH with Lido, or governance tokens like Uniswap. Let's see what yield I'm currently getting on my fractional Picasso art. The long-term sustainable reward system for Ripe Protocol is the endowment, where all protocol revenue flows, mostly borrower interest payments. And it's like the protocol treasury, but it's productive. It's deployed in strategies that can generate yield. And then part of that yield is distributed back to depositors, which is what I'm seeing here, the endowment yield. Of course, we also have Ripe tokens as a key incentive driver for the first few years to help bootstrap the protocol, as well as get more distribution for governance. Let's do a deposit of my tokenized NVIDIA stock. Let's deposit all of my shares. Ultimately, what backs Green, our stablecoin, are the assets that are deposited into the protocol. So even if someone is not using their assets as collateral to borrow against, we still let them volunteer to lock their assets for a longer time period. And the longer they lock their assets, the higher the rewards, but it's totally optional. As someone is depositing, they can see what their expected yield will be based on how long they've agreed to lock their assets. Okay, that's done. Let's deposit my tokenized Rolexes. I can select all three. I can verify their details and traits to make sure I'm getting the right one. And I'm willing to lock these for 30 days. There are so many assets out there that are idle, dormant, not producing any yield. Well, with Ripe Protocol and through the endowment, you can deposit these assets, and for the first time, you can start generating yield. Okay, let's talk about borrowing. So with Ripe Protocol, you can get a single loan that's backed by all of your collateral assets. Many other kind of CDP-based protocols require you to manage a different loan per collateral asset, and let's just be honest, that's a terrible user experience. In the table below, I can see all of my deposit assets and the loan terms that are associated with each one, like the interest rate, loan-to-value ratio, etc. When I take out a loan, it's volume weighted based on all of these parameters. So there's sort of an aggregated, rolled up single set of debt terms based on all of my collateral assets. All loans are denominated in Green, the stablecoin of Ripe Protocol. So when a user borrows, the smart contract mint Green for the user. Green is backed by the user's deposits, which are now locked until the user pays off their debt. Okay, let's get a loan. If I want, I can choose to instantly stake my Green in the stability pool. Let's do that. Okay, now I can see a few different views on my debt health and overall collateralization. In pool-based models like Aave or Morpho, interest rates are volatile and dynamic based on how much liquidity there is in the pool. And it can lead to spikes in interest rate, which brings uncertainty around what the debt terms actually are. Because Ripe has a stablecoin, the DAO can set borrow rates that are stable, predictable, and competitive. This is just a much better user experience for borrowers. If a user's collateral reaches the redemption threshold, then people who hold Green can come and essentially pay down the user's debt in exchange for some of the collateral assets. That only works if the assets are fungible and permissionless. And if the collateralization reaches the liquidation threshold, then the protocol will start selling their assets until the debt position is restored to good health. The stability pool. This is where people can stake their Green or Green LP. The main reason why somebody would do this is for the yield. It's for the rewards, the incentives. And so by participating in the stability pool, you get rewards in three ways. 1, endowment yield. 2, Ripe token rewards. And 3, liquidation fees. When a user is liquidated because of their unhealthy debt position, participants in the stability pool are who capture all the liquidation fees. The weights for staking LP tokens are much stronger than just staking Green alone. We want to incentivize Green liquidity. The bonding mechanism is a way for the protocol to raise capital, specifically for the endowment. Assets in the endowment are typically deployed in strategies to generate yield. But in the initial stages, much of the endowment assets will be used to support Green liquidity so people can easily swap in and out of Green. So here's where the protocol is selling Ripe or Green tokens at a discount to raise funds. there are set time periods, intervals called epochs, where the protocol is selling some limited amount of ripe or green tokens. And as the epoch progresses, the discount increases. Let's start with green bonds. So in exchange for my USDC, the protocol is going to give me green at a discount, and in this case, some ripe tokens as a little bit of a cherry on top bonus. Now let's buy ripe bonds. So in exchange for my USDC, the protocol is going to give me ripe tokens at a discount. And the amount available in this epoch has gone way down significantly after I just purchased it. Now at the bottom of the page, I can see the bonds that I've purchased, and there is a vesting period. I have to wait a bit before I can just go grab my green, grab the ripe tokens. And this is simply because we need the economics to make sense. The proceeds from USDC going to the endowment need to generate yield and offset the cost of selling these ripe or green tokens at a discount. Okay, let's take a quick look at the dashboard. And the thing I want to highlight here is the endowment. We've talked about the endowment. It's kind of like the protocol treasury. All revenues flow to it, primarily interest payments from borrowers. And here you can see how the endowment assets are currently deployed. The idea is that these assets are productive, generating yield. In this case, because it's a testnet, it's only deployed on an Aave USDC strategy. But when we launch, it'll have a number of different strategies. Think of things like lending protocols, staked DAI, staked Frax, staked Curve USD, etc. You can also see all of the protocol-owned liquidity, almost $500,000. And there's also some idle USDC, which came in via bonding that we just did. That'll be deployed once governance acts on it. You can also see where the endowment yield is currently being distributed. Ripe token holders decide where endowment yield goes, but these are all the spots. Now, eventually, token holders can essentially say, hey, the protocol is healthy, we want the endowment yield. The fee switch is basically built in from day one. We imagine that over time, less and less people will be using the front end, the web app, but rather Ripe protocol will serve as infrastructure to power yield and credit for consumer applications like fintechs, wallets, exchanges, and others.